Hello and welcome back to the Sell Like You podcast with me, Harriet Mellor. Now, I've been asked a lot recently about how I fit it all in. Where do I find the time? How do I do it all? And this episode, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say. How am I going to add value to those out there without just saying, hey, I'm really busy and this is just how I fit it in. So I thought I'd share a couple of things that I have implemented over the last few years that have really helped me to achieve a lot in my day. Now, I have a lot of energy, so probably just start by premising that I have a lot of energy. It comes when I am lit up around what I do, and I absolutely love doing what I do. I love the business that I've built. I love the team that we have. I love the clients that we get to work with. I love the connections we have in the industry. I love absolutely everything about it. And what comes when you love something this much is the energy is there to keep going. So I am not a great example of not working a lot, or if we need a bit of balance in our days. And yes, I do find balance, but I go through seasons, or I believe that, we go through seasons, and I look at the seasons as seasons to knuckle down, get things done. I've got seasons where things feel a little bit more challenging than normal. I've got seasons where things are going incredibly well. And all of that is part of being number one in sales, but number two, running a business. And so yes, I've got the energy to do that, but I also structure my week, and I look at things in a different way to many people. And so for me, I look at where do I prioritize time for when I've got the energy, or when my energy is at its highest, or when I know I work really well. And so for me, I'm a really early bird. I usually get up at 5. I walk the dogs. I sometimes go to the gym first, or go do a second walk and go and get the coast in and get some real steps in, because I have 2 Labradors and they are not the fastest. Molly's pretty quick, but Arlo is a bit of a plodder unless we're at the beach, and then he's not. So I will tend to start my day with that, and then I will get stuck into work. My ideal would be to get up, have half an hour, have a cup of tea, and then get straight into my day. But I walk the dogs first and I get some exercise in. Otherwise, I do that after work alternatively. So I then know that my first part of the day, so from that kind of 6 a.m. onwards, 6:30 a.m. onwards, is prime time for me. If I could just knuckle down between that time for maybe about 4 or 5 hours, I could probably get everything I needed to do in that day. But I also run training and enablement. I run strategy sessions. I have calls with clients. I do coaching. I support a team. We are always prospecting and speaking to new opportunities as well. So I've got a unique challenge that I didn't have before as a salesperson, is that I also deliver, and then now I manage a team. So what I've started to implement now, I love podcasts. So first off, let's just talk about where I get my time to listen to podcasts and what I'm listening to. So I listen to podcasts all the time. So I have podcasts that are on my on Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. You choose your flavor, and I will download a whole heap of podcasts. I do not subscribe to any podcasts. Now, the reason why is that, for example, I really like Diary of a CEO, but I don't like all of the topics, or I don't want to listen to all of the topics. I don't want to listen to things about food or sleep or politics or anything like that. It's not going to help me. It's not going to teach me anything that's going to be useful in my day to day. That's my belief. So I will often just go through and I'll spend every few weeks, I'll go find another 5 or 6 podcasts. Sometimes they're 3 hours. Sometimes they're half an hour. I love a really long podcast. I like a journey. I like a story. I don't know about you. You have to let me know. But I love a journey and a story. So I will often find a longer podcast, and I have it on so that when I chuck my headphones in at some point, if I'm around the house and I just want to have something to listen to, I chuck my headphones in and it's on. When I get in the car to drive to work, I connect my Apple CarPlay, it plays. And so the biggest moment for me in a podcast tends to be on my way to and from the office or to meetings. I never take my phone or headphones when I walk. Even when I go to the gym, I often don't take it either. I find it too distracting. And if I get messages or emails or Teams messages or just general notifications, yes, I could turn them off. I will find that in between my sets, that's what I'd be looking at. So I choose not to do that. So I have dedicated time for podcasts in the car, and I love that time. Sometimes I love being in silence. It gives me time to think and gives me ideas. And when I'm walking, it's proven, studies have proven that you're walking, I think it's the momentum of walking, helps you to think, clear your head and come up with new ideas. So that's also why I don't take anything. I just have my key, and that's me. And if I'm walking from home, I just chuck my key, hide it somewhere, and then, get going. Podcasts are really important. That's where I learn a lot and get exposure to a lot of different things and get different ideas. I mentioned before about Diary of CEO. That's probably one of them. Don't listen to that one as much because the guest and the structures have changed. However, I've really enjoyed finding guests and then finding their own podcasts. I find if I find a guest that I like and I listen to them as guests on other podcasts, it can just be on repeat, their story, how they started, what they did. Whereas on their own podcast, they're sharing different things and they're getting different guests on as well. So, for example, I found Dan Martell. He was being interviewed on the Modern Wisdom podcast. Both podcasts highly recommend. And I started following Dan Martell, and he talks about buying back your time. And I have now bought the book. So I was a bit like, I've listened to the podcast, probably don't need the book. He's given some really good insight. And his insight was around blocking and scheduling time to do the similar tasks within your day. So if I give you a quick example on that, if I'm doing outbound calls, we don't want to do outbound calls for an hour and then move into a one-on-one meeting, then move into a sales coaching call, then into a group coaching call, then into something else, record a podcast. The idea is that you block and you bulk together tasks throughout your day so that you are in the zone. Now, if I relate that back to what we train is whenever I'm talking about sales training and about prospecting, we look at replication of ideal clients. And that's where we look at a specific client type or an industry and we go after them. The reason why I suggest doing that on a weekly focus or even a monthly focus, if you've got a high volume of opportunities, is that we really align on the message and the mindset and who we're talking to and what we're talking about. Whereas if we go from legal to cyber to car manufacturer to engineer, we're having to adjust our messaging and how we're opening the conversation every single time. And that's going to take longer than if it's legal, and then tomorrow we switch on to something else. It gives us the ability to really prepare and then deliver solid results at the end of it. So when I think about what Dan suggests in Buy Back Your Time, now I'm just about to finish his book and so good. I'll talk about where I read books in a moment. So with regards to podcasts, so that's how I download them and then I ingest them. If I find stuff that works really well, or if I'm really aligning on something, I will use ChatGPT to voice note into so that it can consolidate my notes for that specific podcast so that when I'm doing my on the business tasks, I can come back and reflect on whether I would like to attempt anything in the business. Now, I will then I'll find something, I will think about it for 2-3 weeks in terms of if I'd implemented this, what would my week look like? If I'd tried this, what would have happened here? And when I do that, and over time, over those weeks, if I feel that that would have given value, I then put it into a schedule to then implement. And then I test it for 4 weeks. And then I make a decision whether it improved or made it worse. For example, nothing from a podcast, but we use Pipedrive. I started using Pipedrive projects. Now, we use a project management tool called Asana, and Asana is what we use across the business. Everybody in the team uses it regardless of their position. Now, in Pipedrive, the reason why we started to use projects was they've got a lot of automation in Pipedrive. So once I close once I've won a client, it will automatically go into projects. It will choose a template and then it will assign the tasks to the people. The challenge was that we weren't used to being in Pipedrive for handling tasks. And it meant that we just weren't doing them efficiently. It meant that when it came to us actually implementing or actually checking in on those projects, they were really last minute and we were running out of time to get them completed because they weren't in our normal place. So we tried it for 4 weeks. It didn't work. We put it back to Asana. That's what we're doing. So you can always try things and they do not have to be big. I found the most impactful, suggestions and tips to be the best. So in terms of my calendar, blocking now. So what I've started to implement, because I've been a big fan of Dan Martell's for some time, I have already taken on a lot of what he suggested. The other person that suggests around batching and blocking is Alex Hormozi. He's also a really interesting character. If you're in sales, I think you'll like him. If you're not, you might not. But he is very to the point, very direct. And he's this big kind of gym buff, done incredible things, making a lot of money, impacting a lot of businesses, and just doing a really good job of it. And he talked a lot about batch creation of content. He creates over 250 videos from one day of content. And that to me is amazing. We create and produce about 40 pieces of content a week. And that's a lot. But that comes from the mentality and using the framework that Alex Hormozy has shared. So that works really well for us. And we've been doing that now for nearly a year. And we, again, that worked. We are definitely not going backwards. So in terms of calendar of blocking, what I've started doing now is, because my calendar is already pretty full for the next 4 weeks, what I've started to do now is look at, okay, for future, if I have my days that look like this, how will it, if I've got a day that will say, let's say the morning is prospecting or following up on prospects, the afternoon is supporting the lead development team, the following day is creation of content and copy for these podcasts or for videos, what will the afternoon look like? And it means I can mix them around. Now, the thing I've always struggled with is that when I'm dealing with opportunities and prospects, a lot of the time you have to work on their time. Now, that's not completely true. If I was only available on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. or on a Thursday at 4 p.m., that's what I've got available if you want to meet this week. Otherwise, next week I've got more flexibility. That means that if I approach it with the same mentality, but across the next 3 months, is anybody going to say no or really push back if my availability is on this day at this time or this day at this time? So it's really about testing and seeing what you can, I suppose, in brackets, get away with, but what will work for you and your business, or for you and your, and your prospecting. If you find that you're struggling with that, then what I would suggest to do is, let's say yes to that meeting on a Thursday at a time, but then block out the rest of that morning so you're focused just on prospecting, so that your mind's in the right place. Then when you're doing proposals, you might then say, look, I'll get the proposal back to you. Often for proposals, I find we tend to give anywhere between 2 to 4 days for a proposal. Most people don't need them right away, but one thing you could do is just ask, when do you need this by? When will you be discussing this internally? When do you hope to make a decision? If they say in 2 weeks, awesome, I'm going to get you that proposal by end of week. It means now you can fit that proposal into the time you've got allocated. And it means you're not just doing that, have you got a minute here? Have you got a minute there? So it's very much a different approach. And the thing that I implemented last year that was a game changer for me as a business owner and a salesperson was that I allocated 2 days where I do not do any meetings, any calls, any enablements or in-person or trainings, and I do deep work. So that is on research, it's on the business, it's on things that I need to get done or created. We have a lot of systems and processes, and we have programs, and we have a lot of content that we create. And just from doing that, and I was terrified of doing it, but the fact that I was able to take 2 days out of a 5-day week and limit everything I do to 3 days to do with actually delivering and supporting the team changed the way that our business grew in the last 12 months. And that was down to us having what we call maker days. And that's an Alex Hormozy thing as well. So managing my week, managing what goes in my calendar. And then my third thing I would say is around what I say yes to and what I say no to. Now, I love helping people. I don't care whether you pay me, whether you get this all for free. I just love it. I love seeing a difference. I love seeing somebody go from, I've no idea what I'm doing, or I'm trying really hard, it's just not working, through to here's a couple of strategies and here's how I can help. I've been a mentor on Blackbird Giants. I've been a mentor for different SaaS startups. I get people reaching out to me all the time, and I'll give feedback and support. But the thing that I've always struggled with, and I think a lot of people share this, is around, do I have a minute? Can they pick my brains? Would love to grab a coffee with you. So what I've done now is that I've allocated time in my month, not my week, but in my month, for those times. So they're meetings that won't necessarily come with any opportunity, or they're not an opportunity to sell or make revenue. It's not necessarily going to benefit me or my business or my team, but it's going to benefit them. So I've allocated time to do that, and I just love doing it. Not everybody has to do it, but it's something that really lights me up and keeps me energized, so I can do that. And then I'm also ensuring that I've got my days blocked out for when I've been away for travel. So one of the things I shared on the podcast was that I take 1 day when I get back from a big week of travel or from a holiday, where I take 1 day to really get back into the groove of things, catch up on things that I need to do before I'm actually really back in the business. I have made a bit of an error on this though. I am going away for the Easter break, and I haven't blocked out the Monday, and the Monday is chocker. So I think, I'm away for 10 days. I'm surely I'll be well rested and ready to go. And that might just mean that on the Sunday on my flight home, I will be doing a little bit of work. So let's see, watch this space. But it's something that I certainly do recommend. Now, I know that I said that was my final thing, but then I remembered I mentioned books before. So I love reading. I have got a whole host of books. My microphone's actually propped up. If you're watching, I'm going to show you all my books that my microphone is propped up on here. So I've got in this stack Fanatical Prospecting, Sell More, Do Less, The E-Myth Revisited, and the Ultimate LinkedIn Messaging Guide from Daniel Disney, who's awesome. So I love reading. I'm a writer in books. So I will write in books. I will highlight. I will fold pages over. You never want to lend me a book because I will destroy it. So I've also moved to Kindle recently because I smash through books. So I will get through a book in about 3 or 4 days if it's really good. If it's something that will allow me to implement, Dan Martell as an example, Buy Back Your Time. He's got a workbook. I've got it open on a tab. He is, what he shares in that is insane. I'm probably going to read that book 3 times in the next few weeks. If I find a book that really gives me value and gives me food for thought and gives me things that I could implement, I use it almost like you would as a textbook when you were learning. So I use it as that. I go through it. I create activities. I create tasks in Asana, and then I get going on it. If I've read a book and it was good, but not necessarily, at that level of good where I need to read it again and again and create tasks, I will create a note in my phone of the book name and I'll just do a quick synopsis. So it'll be, what did I learn? What were my reflections? What did I take away? Because I like to come back to that. I've got a journal, but I often don't use it, to be honest. And I put it in there as my learnal. So that's my journal and my learnings. What a geek. So my learnal was in there and I was doing that. So that was where I'd save things every week. I'd add in kind of what I've learned or what I've taken on. I just found that it was not that accessible. So if I'm on a plane or if I'm over East or if I'm in the US, I can't be lugging that with me everywhere. So I've just found that by having it on my phone in my notes section, I can go back and scroll. The other thing I have heard of, and I haven't used it yet, was that Modern Wisdom, I think his name's Chris, he shared a link on the fact that you it's a subscription and it basically takes what you highlight from your Kindle and it sends you an email every day with different things that you've highlighted. And he said that he loves it because it gives him idea for content and for what he could write about in his newsletter and what he could think about or implement or teach his team. And I think that's really interesting. So I'm going to explore a bit more of that. So I'll share that on my socials when I find it and if I think it's any good. But that's in a wrap, really, in terms of how I manage time. I will have back-to-back meetings with no time in between because I can. If I'm delivering something which is more of a workshop, or if I've got more than 3 people on a Zoom, or I'm in person, I definitely can't do them back to back. I need an hour at least, and maybe 2 in between that. So just be mindful of what works for you and what will help you get there. The blocking of things of the same kind of task works really well. Having Asana so I can see what I've got to do and how I'm going to do it. Podcasts that are in the car so they come on automatically, but I also still really cherish my quiet time. My Kindle, I read that on the weekends and I read it at night. I can read books at night and go straight to sleep. So that's a real benefit for me. And then reflecting on the learning. And if there's anything in there that I want to actually take on and do, I use that as almost like a course or a program or a coach. And I just let the book do the talking and then capture the information from there. So if you're worn out from listening to this, I don't blame you. I think many people are, but I hope it's giving you some inspiration in ways that you can, tweak your day, tweak your week, look at different hacks within your month. If you're creating content, like I said, I record all of this, but I've got part of the team is who actually brings this into editing, make sure it goes live, make sure it's scheduled, make sure we use everything from these podcasts. And so that just means that we're really efficient with everything that we create. And that's where I believe we have the biggest impact. So I hope it's helped you. Let me know. If you want any additional references to the podcast or books that I've mentioned, I will make sure that they are in the show notes so you can go and check them out as well. But thank you so much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can always find me over on LinkedIn. Just search Harriet Mellor, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.